While most developers are stuck debugging for hours, this loop is brute forcing its way to a senior level Rust application, a JavaScript project, and a couple web apps. Let me introduce you to Ralph. If you're a new coder, I know exactly where you're living right now. You're probably in the debug loop of death. You spend maybe 20% of your time actually designing cool features and the other 80% staring at a red text in the terminal, trying to figure out why you missed a semicolon or your dependency tree is broken. Now, this is why people quit. This is tutorial hell. But what if you could outsource the suffering? Enter the Ralph Wiggum technique. Named after the Simpsons character, the philosophy here is simple. Iteration beats perfection. We don't need to be smart, we just need to be persistent. Ralph isn't a person, Ralph is a loop. And this loop doesn't care about your syntax errors, it just tries and tries again until it works. Okay, let's break this down. First, we start our loop with a while true. This means don't stop until I tell you to. We're creating an infinite loop. Cat prompt just means that we are shooting over the contents of prompt.md into the next following command, which is, in our case, open code run. Now, you could do this with Claude Code. You could do this with, the Gemini CLI. You could do this with any agentic framework. And that's the important bit. It has to be an agent because you want it to have tool access so that it could read files, write files, search the web, do all that kind of stuff so it can work autonomously. And then we're going to choose our model. And using OpenCode as an agent means you can run it with pretty much any model out there right now. You could use any of the models on OpenRouter. The sky's the limit as far as what you want to do. And this is important because to make the most bang for your buck, you probably want to run this locally with the best open source coding model that you can run, because that way you don't run $1 million bill up on your coding platform. This will be running indefinitely unless you change this to be a regular loop. Further limit the amount of maximum tokens or billing that you want to do. You could run it something like this. While one-shotting apps is pretty cool, realistically you want to use this at a feature level, spec level, so you might only need 5 iterations if you're just going to build one feature out for your app. The other really important thing to do in a Ralph loop like this is to make sure that it has a file. Create a progress file. This could be whatever you want, but we're just going to call it progress.txt, so that it could keep track of its progress. So usually with these Ralph scripts, you want to have a little bit more information about what you want it to do, like tasks and what the goal is. So right now we're basically in an empty directory. So we could say something like build a Rust CLI calculator that handles floating point errors and divides by 0 gracefully. But this is just the bare bones of how it works. You give it a prompt, you tell it to make sure to have a way to keep track of the progress in between loops. This is very important that you have this file, because the main benefit of running a loop like this is that it clears the context. So every time that this finishes, ends up at done, that's it. That process is over, and then it starts again and reads your instructions and starts all over again. And that progress file is the only way for it to know what it's done so far and what it needs to do next. One thing that you do want to consider is making sure that your agent isn't able to do something that's going to really mess you up. Whatever your agent framework is, make sure that you are not allowing commands that you think are going to be risky to your project. After switching to GPT-OSS, you can see that it is doing stuff. It's reading files, it's writing files, and almost like magic, it has created our PRD file. So it does have a user story, the technical requirements for it, and essentially it's going to use this to create a task list. It checked it off. Create the progress.md, which is this file. It checked it off. Now it's going to start actually adding functionality. The whole point of this is that it reiterates over things and it can understand it itself. So here we can see that it's actually writing tests. So it says that 4 tests passed for division overflow. One more thing to note while this is working actually is that whatever feature you're trying to build, you should make sure that it relatively fits within the context size of your coding model. The agent frameworks we have today tend to want to push it through a compactor, and that is basically just summarization. It's going to get rid of important details. You do not want that because it's adding dependencies that it needs to add. It's taking a look at the feature set. It's updating its progress as it goes, and this is phenomenal. So in terms of this prompt for this calculator, it might have made sense to give it some examples of the calculations we were trying to do. So what kind of interactivity are we expecting? All that kind of stuff is what you would want to have in this prompt. It doesn't have to be super technical, but the more you list here, the more of an idea it's going to have for it. Okay, so it's done a couple loops. I'm going to stop it there. If I go ahead and run that or build that with cargo run, we can see that we have this very nice calculator. So 7 times 4 should be 28, times 5 is 140, divided by 22. You could do floating point. Interacts with the mouse. I could also use the keyboard and stuff like that, and it was able to do it in a few loops. A few notes is that it definitely should be focused a little bit more towards a very specific feature set in order to get the most out of it, because tokens are money, and there's not enough of that to go around when it comes to this stuff. So be mindful of that. Run your first loop. Comment, Ralph sent me. Let me see what you guys make, and I will catch you guys in the next video.